Hello people, it's Richie here from Richie Reports UK channel. It's just a quick video. What I'm wanting to talk about, what I'm going to show you here, is just been watching Nigel Farage on GB News, and he's been talking about his bank accounts being cancelled over the last couple of weeks. And what he's said is banks are now talking about they can monitor people's social media accounts for sort of wrong think and wrong speech, and possibility they could cancel your account if you're not woke enough or your opinions don't align with the bank's opinions. And he's talking to Toby Young from the Free Speech Union. They had their PayPal account cancelled, didn't they, a few months ago because of their political opinions. Much like Nigel's had his account cancelled because of his political opinion. Anyway, what we're talking about is banks now have the ability to monitor anybody's social media accounts, and if they don't like what they see, the possibility you could have your accounts cancelled. And they even talk now about banks even possibility of they could cancel people's accounts if they spend their money on the wrong things. We're getting towards a Chinese social credit system here, aren't we? It was never a more important time to keep cash alive. It's now, isn't it? Definitely. So watch the following video that's going to be on now.
I said from the very start, if they can do it to me, they can absolutely do it to you. I'm joined by Toby Young, General Secretary of the Free Speech Union, and somebody who was debanked by PayPal not all that long ago, but you managed to win that battle. Toby, my case, they've been monitoring on a monthly basis my social media. I don't align with the bank's values. Funny, I've had some emails over the weekend from people resigning from the bank, saying to the bank, you don't align with my values, which I've enjoyed. I know for a fact that staff that work for all of these banks now have their social media monitored. I've got a couple of cases of people being brought before disciplinary committees for what they've said online. But now we understand that the four major banks in Britain, written into the small print, into the detail, is that they have the ability to monitor our social media. And with AI and the march of technology, we're not very far away from every one of NatWest customers and every other banks being monitored on social media. How seriously do you take this?
I take it pretty seriously. I think it's a big story. The four major high street banks, HSBC, Lloyds, Barclays, and of course NatWest, which owns Coutts, all say, not in their terms and conditions, but in the small print of their privacy policies, that they reserve the right to monitor people's social media accounts. They don't say why, and they don't explicitly admit it's to with a view to debanking them if they express any unorthodox or heterodox political views. But that's the strong implication, and we know that banks have been doing that, not least in your case and in my case. So I do take it very seriously. One of the things the Free Speech Union does is we advise our members not only to make sure their privacy settings are set to quite a high standard, so not everyone can access their social media accounts, but also to install apps that automatically delete their social media posts after a week, a fortnight or so. So offence archaeologists can't go back over a number of years to try and find things to be offended by.
And is that, I mean, I certainly WhatsApp has got that. Do all the social media apps have that?
Yeah, I think you can find apps which you can install which will delete old posts, and you can set the timeline. That's
good advice. Otherwise, we've got to say to people, don't say what you think. And that would be the last thing that we want to do. But Toby, I begin to think that debanking, making you a non-person, in the wrong hands, this is potentially the ultimate tool of repression.
It really is. I mean, it's, as I think we discussed when I was last on your show, it's the emergence of a Chinese-style social credit system in Britain. And what that means is, I mean, in communist China, if you say something that offends the ruling party, you can lose access to your bank accounts. And, you know, in an increasingly cashless society, that's a very powerful tool of censorship. It's a brutal and effective tool. If you can't buy groceries, if you can't pay your rent, if you can't get another bank account, if you're debanked by NatWest, then you really are stymied. So it has an enormously chilling effect on free speech. So it's really deeply worrying. And when the Free Speech Union were debanked by PayPal back in September of last year, we immediately approached the government, Andrew Griffith, who you rightly praised earlier.
He's doing a good job, isn't he?
He's doing a good job, yeah. We told him what had happened to us. He said, the best thing you can do is to submit evidence to the Treasury demonstrating how widespread this is. We had plenty of cases, people we were looking after, it had happened, it hadn't just happened to us. So we submitted reams of evidence to the Treasury, and it was partly because of that that now the government is changing the payment regulations to make it harder for banks to debank people. It won't make it impossible. I mean, what it said is you have to disclose why you're debanking people, and you're not supposed to discriminate against people for their perfectly lawful political beliefs. Yes. But the banks, of course, won't always honestly disclose why they've debanked people, as you found out in your own case, which is why,
Although what I have learned, you know, if I'd sat here with you 2 months ago and we talked about subject access requests, I wouldn't have had the foggiest idea of what they were. And I now realise it's a powerful tool.
Yeah, on the Free Speech Union's website, we've just created some FAQs about what to do if you're debanked, including how to submit an SAR request and a template SAR letter that people can copy and paste and send to their banks if they're debanked.
No, well, that's very, very important. I mean, trouble is, though, isn't it? We've all signed up to this privacy policy. So we've given them automatically the right to monitor our social media accounts, which they can do very easily using keywords.
Yeah.
How do we turn this back?
I think, well, one of the reasons Coutts justified debanking you was because you supposedly posed a reputational risk to Coutts.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they bank mafia gangsters and goodness knows who else. But they did say if I had lots of money, that would still be OK. That's the morality of Coutts, isn't it?
It's ludicrous. And the person deciding that it would actually be better for Coutts's reputation to debank you rather than allow you to retain an account must be a half-wit, because nothing has done more damage to Coutts's reputation than the decision to debank you.
No.
So, we've got that's the way, I think, to fight back against this. Make it clear that the price these banks pay, and payment processors like PayPal, for debanking people just because they disapprove of their political views, just because they're not woke enough. We've got to make sure the price they pay for that, in terms of reputational harm, is far greater than any harm that might befall them because they offer payment processing services to these people.
Yeah, I think that process may have begun. I wonder, a couple of people have emailed into me. Bud Light, famously Bud Light, you know, this is the sort of great working class beer of America, and they had a transgender, Dylan Mulvaney was the name, was advertising Bud Light, and Bud Light drinker said, hey, this has all gone way too far. Sales have fallen dramatically. It's no longer the biggest selling beer in the US. And maybe there's a bit of a tide turning against some of this corporate nonsense. Could this be the Bud Light moment for British banking?
It could be the Bud Light moment. You know, that's been an incredibly effective boycott campaign in the United States. It's had a devastating effect on the share price of Anheuser-Busch, the parent company. I think when PayPal tried to debank the Free Speech Union, and I went to war with PayPal, including coming on your show, and then they did a reverse ferret, and then they tried to change their acceptable use policy, and that created an enormous backlash, so they then did a reverse ferret on that. At the end of that process, that 2-week process, they'd had $10 billion wiped off their share price. I'm sure that the attempt to debank you from Coutts hasn't done much for NatWest's share price. I think that's the way to fight back. Hit them where it hurts. If we can make sure that they lose money as a result of acting in this censorious way, then they'll start. Then they'll sit up and they'll stop, I think.
Toby Young, keep fighting the good fight. And believe me, folks at home, this is not the end of the matter. The apology from Dame Alison, the apology from the BBC, I have not given up with this project. In fact, I've barely started with this project because this runs right through corporate Britain. There is a huge degree of political prejudice. The new liberal left are the most illiberal people in the world. It is cancel culture. And if they can control your money, well, goodness knows where this ends. And I'm going to have, over the course of the next few weeks, a lot of stories of people who've been debanked for a whole raft of reasons, including how you spend your money. Yes, they're even debanking people because of how they spend their money. The whole thing is completely and hopelessly out of control. Now, some very interesting by-election results that took place last Thursday, including